BrowserStack is one of my favorite companies. Of course, you're a great friend, but I've really loved your journey so far. How do you started? For the audience who do not know much about journey of BrowserStack, it was a bootstrap company for a very long time, really doing well, growing like a VC funded company. And then Ritesh decided to take capital and grow it even further. Ritesh is going to walk us through the journey. So welcome, Ritesh. For starters, why didn't you start with the introduction of BrowserStack, what it does, what the company about? I think it'll be good for people to understand, hear from you what BrowserStack is all about.
Sure. Thanks, Manav, for inviting me in and for your kind words. I think I just happen to be now known for a unicorn, being the CEO, co-founder of BrowserStack. But what really I am is it's probably an entrepreneur, a problem solver, a thinker, an engineer, a scientist, and of course, reserved and non-social. That's probably how I like going about describing myself. And at this point in time, I happen to be the CEO, co-founder of BrowserStack. What we really do in BrowserStack is we help developers build applications that works across millions of different permutation combinations of consumer devices and platforms out there. So whether it's a website or it's a mobile application, or maybe in the future, we're going to probably see probably an upward trend of smart TVs, watches. So we help developers to make their apps compatible across all these different platforms.
Thanks, Ritesh. So if you were to go back into your journey, and a lot of our audience here today are startups, some people have just been in the very early stages of starting up, some have crossed the 1 million mark, and some are towards growth beyond $5 million. I think it'll be really important to understand, you are not coming from a traditional background, and a lot of you're coming from IIT Bombay like you did. A lot of a lot of founders coming out of engineering colleges, they latched onto the first idea. And so how did you go about choosing this field? This is kind of esoteric field, right? It doesn't really strike you naturally. It's not that you've gone through a pain point and you started something. So it'll be good to understand how did you go about deciding on which ideas to focus on? What was that thought process like?
Yeah, sure. I think we also started our journey like typical to any other founder. I think we went for a lot of hot ideas in the market. But I think we had our own journey. We probably went through about 25 ideas in a span of 7 years. Almost all of them failed and nothing scaled up. And we probably learned that it's not the ideas, it's the problem that we solve that makes a difference. So just sharing my own experience of BrowserStack. So we were building a consulting website. And my co-founder Nakul put together a WordPress theme up and running in probably about 2 days. He handed over to me, hey, go and probably take it to the customers, get more business. And all our existing customers happen to be from the Microsoft background. So making sure our kind of website is compatible to the Internet Explorer browser back then, it doesn't exist anymore, probably was an important priority. And it would have taken us days to even find the browser because we were always on a MacBook. So we probably faced this problem ourselves. And then we kind of recall that we have faced these problems many times in our past experiences when we were making web application. So I think we happen to identify a problem that we faced in our kind of day-to-day life. And that was the starting point for me.
Okay. And so the early failures didn't deter you. You said you tried a lot of ideas. It was very easy for you to get a job. So what really kept you going? Okay, let me try another one.
I think initially it does, but after a point you get used to it. I think it's the will one needs to have. You just need to keep pushing hard against the wall. At one fine day it breaks. And the only thing you can do is probably learn faster and iterate faster.
I think the underlying question was, how do you decide when to decide a failure and move on? I think lot of times our tendency is to be optimistic, and that does work out in many situations as well, right? That when you say, okay, fine, let me continue for another year, another 3 months, and suddenly the market changes or you get better idea, and some companies do grow like that as well. So how did you go about deciding, okay, when to say, okay, fine, this idea is not working, let me go to the next one, and then go to the next one?
So Manav, we went through the same thing. I think the first few ideas, we did spend about a year and a half, 2 years working on them. But I think we just came with a method to the madness. You come with your own method that what does the success looks like, and a reverse of that is probably the success doesn't looks like, and it's not going to come, and that's the time to call it off and move on. Um, I think it a lot depends on have we hit the right problem statement in the right market, um, and are we probably heading in the right direction in solutioning the problem. If we actually, let's say after 6 months or 9 months, you'll probably identify either that we're not solving the right problem, the market is not big enough, the market is not there yet. That was my first startup. It was about AI machine learning, that's what we call it. It was all about sentiment analysis and reviews available across the globe. Um, we pitched it to a lot of investors. I remember over 50 investors, not a single of them gave a penny. But what we got as a feedback that the market was not ready yet for that technology in the B2C space. Um, and we still kept trying, but I wish probably we could have probably folded it down like sooner than probably spending about 2 years.
Yeah. So if I have to paraphrase you, a lot of times you get stuck at $1 million or between $1 to $2 million, right? And you have good revenue. Customers are saying yes, the problem is good, but the growth is not coming. So did you experience? How would you advise the audience here or the founders, saying how do they go about deciding now to invest more time, go for funding, or you switch to another idea?
I would say like you probably have. Take 6 months tops. Go back to the drawing board. Stop doing what you're doing. Think about it again. Put all your learnings in one place. Study probably deeply about the market, and identify what's going wrong. Come up with like 2 problems they're doing wrong. You have 6 months to fix it. If it doesn't work out, I would say call off, move on.
Right.
Sticking to it, I think time is precious. Like the more you stick to an idea that's not going to work, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, of course. I think in my experience, a lot of time, I think the understanding of market opportunity, not just from the sizing, but the drivers also makes a lot of difference, right? And a lot of time, those waves also carry you through if you hit those waves at the right time, right? So,
yes, that's absolutely right. I think the timing matters. The wave of the market definitely matters. So is the depth of the problem, the size of the market, how many of them are facing this problem actively, what does the competitive landscape looks like. If there are probably about 300 CRMs out there and you want to build another CRM, you probably want to think about it a million times and what's the problem that you're solving that the other 300 haven't identified yet. So yes, Manav, in short, you're right.
Yeah. And the reason I'm focusing on this point is, a lot of time founders have a great choice to even sell their IP and make good money and start the next venture faster. So there are multiple options, and it can be a win for founders in many ways. And there are examples, Freshworks is an example where Girish was not the first 100 help desk company, and Pipedrive is a great example where there were, I think, maybe 100 companies in CRM, yet they listed and had a great exit. So I think the various combinations possible through the journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think one of the key parameters when you start, obviously, is you start with the team, right? Especially the early team, and they also contribute a lot about how do you go about shaping the company. So what were your few experiences in building the early team together? I would say the first 10 employees.
Yeah, Manav, so before the employees, I think I'll probably speak about the co-founders. So I think I'm blessed to probably have world's best co-founder, as that's what I'll put it. It's our journey is almost 19 years old now, and we were in college, and if I look back, I think it's kind of like a startup is a journey of ups and downs. a lot many more downs than the ups. So you need like a co-founder who'll probably, or a partner who'll probably stay with you during all the hardship. There is, trust in each other, a, probably a lot of commitment to probably making it work during all the hard times, and probably who shares the same ambition as yours, respect for each other. I think that's the building block for a long-term startup.
And in a practical aspect, how do you handle the fights? I'm sure you've seen fight with your partners also in a relationship. So how do you handle the downs, and what really goes beyond when, of course, when things are not going well, right? You tend to blame each other. And things go wrong in a startup, right? Because both of you are starting from a place where you don't know how it's going to pan out. So walk us through some of the experiences, some of the examples we are able to negotiate those through difficult times.
Yeah, I think the fights happen in any relationship. I think there needs to be a mutual respect and trust for each other, and it's fine. I think shit happens. Like, move on. Instead of like fighting over it, just spend time into how to solve it. You solve one problem, you move on. You face more problems, just keep solving them. A lot of them are not going to work out. That's what I would advise. Like, fights are going to happen. Nakul and I have been through like pretty low times in our relationship as well. But the more you come out of it, the stronger the bond gets.
Was there a point in time where you said, quits, we're not going to work together?
Multiple times, not once.
Then what brought you guys back again?
I think it's the underlying friendship, and kind of, as I said, like it's just sheer like respect for each other, and the friendship of just spending time with each other. Even if we were not working, I think we can just hang out, watch a nice movie, and have fun around it. And if you have to do a startup again, you always think about whom you know and where your best success lies. And we probably knew it's going to be each other.
Right. So I think this is an important point, because a lot of time people are starting from college like you did. You went to college together, so it's easy to find. And you were in a tech-based business or tech developer-led business, so therefore easier. But if you're a founder starting alone from tech college and you want another co-founder, how would you go about it doing differently when you don't know the person from start or from the college days?
I think you need to look for friends whom you know, and if you have, I don't jump into like the first person you met. Hey, this is going to be my co-founder. I think you need to be friends, spend time with them, know them very well. It might take 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. And probably that may be the right time when you're 100% confident. This is the person I would like to be with for the next 10 years.
Got it. And now we move on to how do you build the first 10 employee base, and what went behind building that core?
Yeah, I think interesting journey for us. I think usual suspects. You start with your own network, reach out to everyone. I think everyone said no. And except for one, actually, like he was a senior in IIT Bombay. He joined us and was a geek. He's a geek as well now. He's probably a CTO now, and helped us through the first 6 months of the journey. And then we were looking for like generalist engineers who probably were geeks, could solve any problem given to them. We went to GitHub, we went to the internet, looking out for such people. And to our surprise, like when we messaged them, most of them already knew BrowserStack, and this was like just 6 months of launching BrowserStack. So it got a bit easier to hire really good talent because they already had a lot of appreciation what the problem we were solving. We hired about 3 engineers, all journalists, could probably solve front-end problems to back-end deep operating system problems as well, and a designer who could probably code as well.
Right. And I think if you look at it, Indian ecosystem or the SaaS ecosystem has also matured in between now, right? Over the last 10 years, where when we were starting 10 years back, GTM was not even in part of the slide deck, right? Forget about coming in terms of action. But nowadays, as you've seen the learning from various data that is coming around the globe and from India, is that you pretty much has to start thinking about go-to-market as you start thinking about your product as well, right? So would you go about building your team differently now if you were to do that?
I think I'll answer that in two parts. I think go-to-market is always important. Even in the early days, we were always thinking about go-to-market, where how can a potential customer can discover you, can try your product, and can probably have a successful purchase. We strongly believed in engineering everything. So our entire experience was like completely self-serve online. There was no human touch at all. And that probably stayed for like almost the first 6 years of BrowserStack. And if I have to do it differently, I would probably think about scale in the early days itself. And I think the journey, we probably are in the 10th year of BrowserStack, what we have achieved in 10 years. If I have to do it again, I think I would probably challenge myself to get there in less than 4 years.
Wow. So that brings me to the next next segment, which is all important, product market fit, right? So how did you walk us through, because product market fit is kind of a dream or a mirage many times, right? You get some early customers, they give you revenue, you feel very happy as a founding team, and then the repeatability does not come, and you struggle a lot. And that's the primary reason why a lot of companies do struggle between $1 to $2 million. Because you got the revenue, early customer had some problem, they paid you the money to solve that. But the real PMF repeatability, which then take you out of that death valley and make you a 10 million plus ARR company, does not come through.
Yeah. So Manav, I think these days, for any SaaS company to reach $1 million, $2 million is easy. There's just like such a massive explosion of SaaS companies happening and customers' willingness to adopt. So my recommendation would be like, just launch your tool for free. Do not think about monetizing it. You're probably adding a friction, you're adding a headache for yourself, and you're probably not getting users who will probably use you in a repetitive manner. So repeatability is important. And to get there, you probably want to remove the entire friction from the journey. I would say launch it in beta, launch it for free. Reach out to the users who have this problem. Go find them on the internet. They're everywhere nowadays. Like when we launched BrowserStack, we launched it for free. In beta, only 3 features. We were on Twitter scouting for people who were like complaining about IE testing. We were probably reading a lot of articles on the internet who are probably complaining about the browser. We just reached out to them, like who had this problem. And a lot of them really started using our product on a repetitive manner because it was free. I think if we would have read a kind of like a paywall, I think we would have been a different story altogether. So my advice would be launch it for free, get a good repeat users kind of using your product on a daily and a weekly basis. And if that number is growing, is the right time for you to probably start thinking about monetizing.
So, especially in a dev tool market, right? Now, India is also a big development market, third largest market after the US and I think Europe. So I think the key question is, how do you find out that you got a product market fit? Is it 100,000 developers? Is it 1 million developers? Or is it 20 developers? So how do you go about understanding that dynamics? At what point in time you actually start doubling down and start going deeply into it?
So for us in beta, after beta launch, within a month, we had over 10,000 beta users. I think hundreds of them were using us repeatedly on a daily basis. They were coming back again and again. And few of them were even asking for a paid version of the tool. Now, if I look back, I think the free version was so bad. They probably thought that if we pay for it, we might get a better tool and a better service. I think that was the first time where we think that we probably can monetize this. We launched pricing and packaging, and day one, we had over 10 paying customers. And within a year, just on its own, completely word of mouth, we grew to $1 million ARR and 1,000 paying customers. I think it was, the 1,000 paying customers, which was growing on its own, I think was the time where we probably kind of realized that we have found something better.
Right. I'm also taking the question, what I'm coming on the chat. So one of the questions from Ashwin is that, how did we actually nail down the PLG growth motion in a dev tool market? Obviously, you just said you had 3 features and you launched it, and there was 10,000 developers. Are there any other parameters you look for to how would you go about architecting for PLG motion?
The product-led growth. I think you just want to have the product solve the end developer problem. Nothing should be in between a developer trying out your product. It needs to be the least friction. Developers give you one shot. Can within minutes or within hours, they can actually integrate your tool and see success. And are you solving the right problem? You'll get a lot of feedback. I think focus on the feedback. Either the feedback would be, hey, it's the right problem. We need more features. We need better features. I think focus on that. Or if you get a feedback that, hey, look, I don't think so. I have this problem. I think that's an equally important problem. If you get a lot more of that, then probably it's a time to call it off.
Right. And this is a related question. Do you think that launch for free will work in a B2B enterprise application space?
I think it should.
Yes, correct. So I can answer that. So it does. So I think there are a lot of companies who are starting this company of TypePad. There are a lot of companies who are starting with freemium model. Freshworks did the same thing in India. Zoho did the same thing. So I think there are many examples like that. I would not say enterprise. We will say when you look at application areas, the market will be mid-market to enterprise. And I think the product-led motion is more focused on the mid-market to small market to start off. So it's a good landing tool. But if you want to grow into enterprise, we're going to go into sales motion. We're going to talk about a little bit more into this discussion. But that was one of the questions I thought it was a good time to ask that. So when you went from a free version to paywall or monetizing, right? So what was the few decisions that you took in pricing? This is one of the questions which is coming here quite often. But how do you decide on the pricing?
Yeah, I think pricing is the least appreciated tool that an entrepreneur has to make their business successful. It's also most of the times a business fails because they don't price it very well. So when we started, our thought process was very naive. Like, what would I pay for it? I was like a freelancer sitting in India. Like, what would I pay for? So we launched it extremely cheap, usage based. You can just pay like $10 a year and be good with it. And after a few months, our kind of like revenue tapered in. We went, and the user base was growing. It's just that how many $10 a year customers can you get? There is a cap on the market. We went back to the drawing board, did a study on the internet, and that is the time we learned there is something known as subscriptions. We were pretty hesitant to launch subscription, but we kind of didn't have a choice, or otherwise we wouldn't have existed. Launch subscription business, subscriptions plan. The day we launched, half of the users actually started opting for subscriptions, and we started growing like some double digit on a weekly basis. And then gradually we kind of removed the entire usage-based pricing and only have as of now subscriptions.
Actually, the key questions, that's an excellent question coming up here is that, especially in a B2B customer, when you landed through developers and you have $10 per developer, when you move to an enterprise contract, or they would want predictability in the pricing model, right? Because they have to look at the budgets and everything at point in time. Yeah. So how do you transition to that journey in the pricing? I know it's a question, but later in the process, but I think last in the pricing section itself.
Yeah, so when a developer starts using your kind of product early on, it can be free, it can be usage, but there needs to be a method that a developer can predict how much usage is that going to be. You need to build that. You need to make it easier for developer to think through this. And if they can't, it's going to be a huge pricing friction. A company can't make a decision that how much of your product they need. I think we need to make it easier for them.
So give audience an example. How did you go about doing in your case?
In our case, we have calculators, we have tools, we have a lot of education material that when our salespeople talk to a potential customer, we kind of educate them how to think about, because most of the times, 80% of the times, customers would be using a tool like ours for the first time. So it becomes an important thing to educate them into how to think about what is our licensing model, what is the minimum for them to start with, how many test cases they have, what is the current setup of their CI/CD, and so on. So we probably educate them.
Right. And while you were finding the product market fit and you had a great story going on, I thought you turned profitable very early on being bootstrap business, right?
Yeah, so just imagine $1 million in ARR and two of us working out of a coffee shop. Um, and we were very frugal. We have to put money from our pocket, and I'm not sure how many of you probably know that we are actually an infrastructure company. We're kind of like a cloud platform like AWS, but more specialized towards testing. So there is a huge infrastructure cost that we have with the backend. And when we launched BrowserStack, we have to probably commit money ourselves. I think we had savings for the last few years, and we kind of committed about $30,000, which needs to last over a year. We came up with a lot of predictive algorithms to probably reduce our infrastructure cost. So being frugal about it, being wise about spending, I think we became profitable in the first few months itself. And since then, I think the journey continues to be a profitable business.
Right. So now at your stage where you have users, making money, very profitable, very big sign for an early stage startup. How did you not go about morphing the roadmap? I have a couple of questions here on the roadmap, right? How do you actually come up with the roadmap? How do you prioritize which features to do? So walk us through the thought process. How do you align that with your growth journey?
So we create our product roadmap on the basis of 3 data sources. The most important one being customer feedback. Um, we listen to like all the customer support feedback. We listen to sales feedback. We listen to all the NPS surveys that we run. So that probably almost is 80% of where the roadmap comes from. Then we look into data and analytics that probably guides us to like what are some problems in the business or on the product side that we are not overlooking. So I would say 10% probably on the data side, and the last 10% can be probably some visionary out of the box thinking ideas from the team that comes in that we probably would like to invest in.
Right. And what was those, how do you negotiate those hard decisions where you have often conflicting interests that comes from the users, right? One user will say, okay, develop this feature. If you look at an enterprise application, they would say, we want an automatic email coming from the software. Other will say, no, we want an API-based integration. So how do you make those trade-offs in the early days when the money is also limited? So what are those 2 or 3, or do you have a framework which you used?
So I think one thing that we strongly follow, we don't let money decide our roadmap. I think there is a very strong culture around it where the roadmap will only be decided by what we think is the best for the customers in long term. So yes, there can be 2 conflicting features. We'll probably say, let's prioritize them. What is priority 1, priority 2, priority 3? We just do a stacking order of it. And then just take the first one, the second one, and the third one. If few customers have to wait, let it be. But the decision needs to be what is the best feature I need to make or the best fixing of the problem I need to do, which in long term is the best for most of the customers.
Right. And while, I assume you funded the first few, the freemium version of the software in the early days of putting the whole thing. As you said, you were an infrastructure company. So I guess all that was funded by you and your co-founders.
Yes.
Right. And I think the key question is that why do you not take any funding? If you look at it today, nowadays, it's like raining money in the ecosystem, right? So which is good for the ecosystem. A lot of people get funded and a lot of people can take bigger risks. But how do you go about making this one of the most important decisions, which is the funding decision life cycle of the company?
Yeah, so we are a little different from most of the startups out there. I can talk about my story that why we didn't probably go about raising money. I think we were profitable from the get-go, and even now we continue to be a very profitable business. So we never had a need for raising primary capital, and we have reached a point where we don't see any future need for raising any primary capital. Um, so there wasn't any uh, intrinsic motivation to probably like um, raise money. Um, um, we just probably a few years back, um, there was a point in time where Nakul and I were kind of feeling aloof and alone. Like, hey, we both have to scale this business now, and we had no idea how to scale a business, not even how to think about it. We had advisors, but advisors can only answer the questions you ask. Um, we wanted partners who have probably seen this journey and have skin in the game. And that was the time in about 2017 where we probably started looking to raise money for Series A.
Right. And so, of course, when you are profitable, you don't need capital. So you got the
Yeah.
money to get a partner who can help you scale. And then you again now close the next round, right? 3 years hence or 4th year hence. So what is the thought process now in the funding process? Why funding? What is the driver behind this funding event?
Yeah. So the primary driver was to reset the value for the business. It's been a while. It was about 3.5 years. The timing was perfect. Um, so it, acquisitions become easier for us. If you really think about it, even like a startup, a SaaS company with a 2 million ARR, 3 million ARR growing fast would look for 50x, 100x. So our ability to acquire them was weak. So that was one. Second was our ability to hire and retain employees. Um, we give stock options to employees, how we can actually let them see value of it and participate. So a lot of employees are participating in the Series B round. And third, which happened to be a good one for us, we got Jay Simons on the board. Again, we have another partner who has seen and probably built Atlassian for over 10 years. And so can probably help us in the journey for the next 10 years.
Perfect. Sure. So you're building for the long term, basically. So you're getting the partners who can help you build a long term value. Perfect. So I think one of the key decisions and in the journey of last 10 years, and a lot of our founders went through or is going through India versus the US decision. I'm talking about the personal decision to move to the US or hire a chief operating officer, head of sales, or a CTO, depending upon your type of company. So what was that period in the life cycle of your journey, and how did you go about making those decisions?
Sure. So I'm a bit of an old school person in this manner. I think I believe in like a team sitting together across a table. The team that eats together, sits together, probably chats together. I think that's how the culture gets built in. That's how we probably solve problems quickly. Um, so I think strong believer of building everything in one place. So we probably are building the entire company, mostly in India itself. Um, and then when we probably reached a point where we had clear defined roles, which needs to be closer to the customers, was a point in time where we probably started expanding uh, across the globe. So not just US, we have sales team in Europe as well.
Right. What were your top two hiring mistakes? One of the key thing to scale, obviously you have great partners, you go profitable, so you have money to spend, your product is great. Both of you are technology is hard, you have a great team in India. But in reaching to the scale where you are today, what are the top two hiring mistakes, and how would you go about doing it? If you're doing it again, what will you do differently?
Yeah, so I think two mistakes that probably come top of my mind. I think one, many a times you land upon people who think about themselves first. Here, what's in for me? What am I going to do here? I think that never works. Um, we have hired such people a lot of times, they never stay with you long. They will probably create more trouble for you than probably help you in the journey. I think you need people who probably should be asking you questions. What is the role I'm going to play to make this big? Will I have an opportunity to do more? You need their value system in place and the commitment to make the organization bigger, not about themselves. Um, the second one, I think if you are a founder who's probably not scaled with a company before or not a part of a scaled journey, I think hiring senior leadership becomes a big problem. It took me multiple iterations of kind of like trying to build a leadership and get it wrong. I think one needs to really hire one. Again, the person who really wants to, who can unlearn a lot of things, is really passionate about making your business big, and is willing to work with you, collaboratively, respect you. I think make that work first before probably hiring the rest of the leadership.
Right. Great inputs, Ritesh. And as you said at the start, you're a techie at heart, scientist. You think about solving the problems, and a lot of our founders are like that, coming from great engineering colleges that we have. So how do you solve the problem of hiring a sales leader, right, or a marketing or a business leader? Because you've never seen one. You yourself don't relate to the people. Maybe you haven't seen there's no muscle memory you have to understand those problems. So that's a key question. I think that a lot of us struggle, right? A lot of founding members struggle, or the team struggle as to when to hire a sales leader, and if I hire, how do I go about interviewing that sales leader? So any tips on that, or any experiences in that?
Yeah, so two things I can share from my experience. I think one, if your sales function is just two people, please don't hire a big sales leader. I think about you need, as a founder, need to play a sales leader role. I think you need to hire a manager first. Get a manager, scale your team to about 8 to 10 salespeople. Take baby steps at a time. If you have a manager, probably hire another second manager. Probably then think about getting a director. I probably won't recommend hiring like a chief revenue officer, where the title probably can anyone get when you're so small. You're probably going to have more troubles than someone who can roll up their sleeves and work down. Second, if the time is right, when you actually have to hire a senior leader, um, I would probably recommend meet some of them, spend time with them, understand what they are, talk to your probably like other peers. I think in my case, I think Manav has helped a lot. So has Girish. It wasn't easy for me, but just learn from them, like talk to them on what has worked with them and what is, and probably go about hiring a right.
No, perfect. I think this is one of the problems that we have to solve as an ecosystem. Right now, I think we have come to a stage where we're able to build great products. I think I'm seeing early thoughts in GTM as well in the teams. I think hiring and building the teams will be the next problem as an ecosystem to scale. So all your inputs are going to be helped. So what's next stage for BrowserStack now? So how are you planning for next level of growth? I think one of the key questions which I want to answer, which many people may not know, right? A lot of you people know BrowserStack as a testing company, and in ecosystem also, I heard a lot of calls among investor community also. BrowserStack is a testing company. So tell us a little bit about how do you go about positioning the company as well. There's a great value driver. It's great learning for all the founders here, that the way people think about your company also makes a lot of difference about how investment communities thinks about your company. Whether they take money or not is a separate point.
Yeah, so no, a good one, Manav. Like I had that experience in the last few months. That was the first time I probably went about creating a pitch deck in the 10 years of journey of BrowserStack. So made me really think deep about the business, how to position, what we really do, and what does a long-term vision looks like. So I think the way we are thinking long is in the next 10 to 15 years, half of the global economy is going to be a digital economy. Can we become the testing platform for the digital economy or half of the global economy? Where 7 billion digital users will be probably accessing applications that are tested on our platform on a daily basis. That's where we want to be in the long term. In the next 5 years, we're probably thinking of two things: how to get to $1 billion in ARR, and how to expand our market. So currently we think we are a leader in a $25 billion market. How do we expand to 100 billion?
And that leads to the last segment of our discussion today. So obviously one product versus multi-product, right? And Shekhar also asked this question to Sudhir in the previous discussion. So do you think your one product can do it? How do you go about now thinking, or did you put the seeds of multi-product strategy much earlier in the process to increase your TAM? Because that's what you're talking about, that you're strategically increasing your total addressable market, and so that we can grow and reach to those 7 billion users for internet digital users, and therefore create $1 billion ARR company.
So I think multi-product is required. It's about at what point in time of your journey it's required. I think that's the most important thing. So we started with manual testing product. And after 3 years, the number one feature request we had was for test automation. So our customers pushed us to launch a new product. So I would say, like, always listen to your customers. That can be the one early sign, so the right sign, the right time that you probably have an opportunity to launch new products. The second one is probably the market size. If you probably have a line of sight that you'll probably run out of steam soon, or probably in the next few years, I think you probably need to think about a bigger opportunity. But if you probably start diversifying your product lines too soon, it gets very difficult to maintain a competitive advantage across all the product lines. If you really see the best of the products or the best of the companies, make sure they have leader product lines. Like Facebook still is a dominant product for Facebook. Amazon.com is still a dominant product. They just made it bigger and bigger, but they didn't think about launching another product. Slack went big, but yes, there was a point in time they should have thought about expanding it, but there is a right time for that to do.
Right. And in your case, I know you already a multi-product now. At what stage did you started making other products or thinking about other products? And going forward, what's the plan?
So we started second product when we were already over 20 million. That was our fourth year when it was the number one request from our customers. Over 400 customers in 12 months asked for it. We heavily resisted, but finally we gave in. And now that product is over 60% of our revenue. So thank God we did it. And we have 5 products now with the recent acquisition. And I think we probably think a lot before adding a new product line. We want to make it a big market and want to make sure we have a leadership in that market as well. So we'll probably add in about 5 to 7 more products in the next 5 years, which probably takes us to over 100 billion in time.
Perfect. And this is a great story. Probably we should have one session with you on this, when to decide on a multi-product strategy. I think this is something which at a growth stage, especially after 10, because it takes 1 to 2 years for your new product to mature and build as well, right? It's typically a 2-year cycle. You can reduce it to 1 year now or even 8 months if your underlying platform, but you literally have to bake in 1 to 2 years to launch the next product. So it is really a very, very insightful conversation. I think one of the last question I have for you is that you almost figured everything out on your own, right? As to when to get the funding, and you were against the tide, went bootstrap for a very long period of time. Of course, you were profitable, so that helped. And then you found the partners, and then now you found the next partner for your growth. So how did you go about learning yourself? That is, of course, one way is to get a great partner in terms of funding when you're starting the company. A lot of businesses don't have the luxury of bootstrapping, right? Because you need more capital upfront. But more important for me is, what was your DNA of learning? Because entrepreneurs have to learn every single day, every single hour.
Yeah, so I think my first source of learning is the internet. I think I call internet my guru. Whatever I have, the first thing I'll do is spend 30 minutes finding an answer on the internet or how to go about thinking about it. If I'm not able to find them, then I have a good set of friends and advisors whom probably I'll reach out to. That's how I think about my learning. There were periods of time when you probably get sucked in operationally. but you need to get out of it. I think learning and growing and reading is very important. And after a point, you need to reach a point, at least 4 to 5 hours a day, you can actually spend into reading and solving problems.
Perfect way to organize your time. I think that's the dream for most of the founders, when you can spend 4 to 5 hours on thinking about problem solving or solving actual problems. I'm great you are at that point in journey. Thank you very much, Ritesh. It's great having you on board. And for all the founders, I think SaaS is a great opportunity. As at SaaSBOOMi, we keep on talking about it. And I think as this annual edition has progressed, I think we have now kind of reached at the cusp of growth of SaaS. That's what Ritesh was also talking about, that talking about 7 billion digital users. So I think, so all the best to everyone here. Thank you very much, Ritesh. Over to you,
Thanks.
Satya.
Thanks for listening, guys. Thanks, Manav. Thanks a lot.